Okay. Hello and welcome once again for joining, and thank you for joining me for today's live, which is all going to be about branding. So before we get started, just a quick introduction. As many of you know, or some may not have realised yet, we're really thrilled to announce that our coaching programme has been launched. We had a soft launch in December, but it's basically fully up and running now, and there are new members joining constantly at the moment. So really excited to announce that. So what is Like a Boss? It's our coaching programme designed to support you through whatever you may need in terms of help for digital marketing. So there is a strong element around Google Ads, but we also have support around anything to do with marketing, video ads, video marketing, Google Tag Manager, Display Network. Anything to do with Google Ads will be part of that program. But of course, once you've got the training, you can also join us for live coaching calls. We have 4 coaching calls a week at the moment, and you can dip in and out whenever you want to. It's a safe space for you to be able to discuss any problems you may be facing, any challenges around the training, and we can help you iron out those problems. Please do take a look at the URL, which is sfdigital.co/YouTube, and you'll be able to get some more information. So I do hope that some of you will take a chance to have a little look at that. So, on to today's topic, which is what is branding? Well, before we get into what it actually is, I'll tell you what it's not. Something I see a lot of in particular on my social media feeds, which is pretty pink colours and nice calligraphy style handwriting and a couple of nice pictures. That is not your business branding. It's not just down to a logo or a typeface or a nice couple of pictures that you can use on social media. So we're going to get into what branding really is. And before I get going, I'll make a little apology. I don't like geek speak. I don't like fancy marketing terms. Branding is one of them. It's constantly overused at the moment. But that's where my apology ends, because I hope that after today you'll have a better understanding of what branding truly means for your business and how you're actually going to implement that and put that into place so that everything you do from your brand sings out the message that you want your audience to receive. So lots of ways of branding, but what it's really about is making sure that your brand is easily recognised, is easily identified, and the end audience know the experience that they're going to receive. And that's all geared around yourself and your business. So how do we go about doing that? Now, for most businesses, branding normally starts with their name, the logo that they might have created, a symbol or a particular design style that they've chosen to adopt. Now, as I just touched on, it is not just about the logo. However, for most businesses, there has to be a starting point. Now, within that logo, there's a lot of time and effort gone in. This is not a case of something that you do it yourself for a number of reasons. And I often have this discussion when new startups come to us, or someone that's quite new in business and needs to get their website done, or they're just looking to get going. And they think they'll knock something up themselves in something like Canva or something similar, and that's going to be their logo. And I do try and remind them that if you are new in business, this is your opportunity to set up the message that you want to give out for the future. Because once you put out a logo, even as a starting point for your business, you're almost committed to that now. And by that, what I mean is, if you think of some of the brands that come to your mind, I'm going to use the example of, for example, here in the UK, one of our big supermarket brands, Tesco. We know that there's red stripe, blue stripe, a horizontal line, the typeface of the word Tesco itself. That becomes established in people's minds. 2-3 years down the line, if you suddenly want to change that, that becomes really hard to do, because you've already started to get some brand awareness around that logo, and suddenly to make a jump because you don't like it anymore isn't necessarily the way you're going to do it. Having said that, if we look at Tesco's logo 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it's probably completely different. But what would have happened is that there's this continual process of updating and tweaking and just refreshing each time so that we don't see those jumps. It just evolves as we go forward. So why is this identity so important? Well, first out, it will help to identify your product or service, and that stands within your company identity. So, for example, think of any domestic product. It might be Tefal, Bush, Samsung. These are all brands that we are very familiar with, and we instantly recognize their logos. And within that, when we see that brand badge on a product, we immediately associate it with that company. So it helps to establish that. We then also have a nice impression with your clients and customers. So again, some of those names I've just mentioned, another one that comes to mind is Apple. Amazing branding that they have created over the years, because not only do we identify with the Apple range and the Apple products, we automatically also have a level of expectation, which is the next point, of what we can expect from that brand. And I think I've touched on this on a previous week as well. I certainly do automatically assume that there's going to be a level of product functionality, reliability, less snags certainly on the Apple Mac in terms of crashes and hacks, etc. But also the customer service. That's also a part of what I have come to expect when I am dealing with Apple. It also starts to then distinguish you from your competitors, and certainly in my mind, I know that should I come to want to replace my computers or my laptop, my first choice will go to Apple, because I know what I'm going to be getting. I may think about some of the competitors, I may put them in there just for comparison. Chances are, because of the experience I've had, I will probably return back to that same brand. So why is branding so important? It can be a huge factor in the overall impression of your company in the mind of your client and your customers. And certainly as your brand starts to become more established and starts to grow, the perception that people have of your brand really does start to bed down as you start to grow your business, and eventually will help to get you more customers and more followers. So branding, really the key to it is making yourself easily recognized. But how do we go about doing that? So let's go back to the logo. What should a good logo be? It needs to be distinctive, appropriate, practical, graphic, easy to see, easy to identify, and get the brand's message across in a simple format. One of the common mistakes is, certainly with self-made logos, is people think they'll put a bit of clip art in and choose a different typeface. It doesn't create a cohesive message of what you're trying to achieve. And as I've put down here, it's really about great concept and great execution. So certainly when I'm briefing my designers with a logo design, they're not going to meet the client. They're my internal team. They need to understand through me exactly what the client is looking for. So the brief will have a history around who the business is, who's the business owner, who's the end audience, who are we trying to appeal to. Are there any color preferences that the client wants to see in their logo? Or if they have no preference at all, how are we going to use our strategy for that logo and give out the expertise that we have in creating a logo? How are we going to convey that message? I'm very proud to say that in all the times I've been briefing, whether it's for websites, print, logos, any kind of design element, I am not a graphic designer, but knowing what the end audience needs, coming from a print background and a highly visual background, I have yet to have a rejection of anything that I've submitted to a client. It always does go through to the next stage. And yes, I expect tweaks, but we don't ever have to go back to the drawing board, because that really does boil down to understanding what you're trying to achieve with that logo. So here's a logo, instantly recognizable. I'm sure I don't even need to say whose logo that is. Obviously it's Nike. But why is that logo so easily identifiable now and so iconic? Lots of things going on here. It's not just something that looks like a tick, rounded tick that's been placed there, and that's become recognizable over the years. The branding experts that would have worked on this, and I believe it was 1974 or 71 when this logo first appeared for Nike. Basically, the name Nike actually comes from the winged goddess of victory, I have discovered, which of course in the sporting arena is hugely important to have that sense of victory and being a winner. The shape itself comes from the goddess's wing, so we've got this shape that's, you know, linked again to the goddess. It's also known internally as the swoosh, which again gives that sense of movement, speed, dynamism, activity. Again, if you analyze the logo a little bit further, it actually follows the profile of a heel in a shoe. So you've got the rounded shape of a heel, but we've also got the fact that it's not straight. A tick, if you could sometimes visualize it as a tick, we're going in the right direction, but also the angle of this is showing movement, because if this was a foot, it's a moving foot. It's actually quite dynamic. So there's so much going on with that logo, and yet it is so simple. And this is what I mean about not overdoing it and trying to pack too much in there, because each of us from that logo alone can take what we need out of it, and yet it's conveying that message. And I've also in my research discovered that logo alone, forget the rest of the products and the line that they offer, is worth 26 billion, which I just thought was absolutely astounding to hear that a logo alone can be worth such a high value. What about the SF Digital logo? How did that come about? So we were probably, I think probably 4 or 5 years into our business, and like many startup businesses, we had done things sort of ourselves and not really established what we were about, still finding our way as a new business, bearing in mind when it started it was supposed to be a small part-time business for me. It was never supposed to be a full-time business, which it was after just 3 months. So why SF and why in that format? So for us, we spent a lot of time choosing the SF element of what we are doing. So we wanted to create that sense of movement by using a slightly a vectorized style where it looks like it's hand drawn. We wanted it to have that human element. Being a digital world, people think it, you know, could perceive us as being quite robotic and static and not have that human touch. And yet by having a slightly more casual, softer look around the SF, I hope we have tried to capture that. Why the purple? This is something about future-proofing your business. It's neither high fashion nor is it really old-fashioned. We have seen colours alone come and go, even in the last 3-4 years. Like I say, at the moment we seem to be, especially in a lot of the female-owned businesses, lots of blush pinks and rose golds and little bits of navy blues creeping in now. What happens in another couple of years? Are you still going to have your blush pink and rose gold? Hopefully not, because you're now dating your own business and the look of your business. But also purple, if you're into these things, is actually quite a spiritual colour and quite a transformational colour. So we at SF Digital are about transforming your business by showing you how we can apply digital marketing to make your business really grow. So what appears to be a simple style actually has had some work put into it. The Digital Studios part of our logo deliberately is what's known as a sans serif typeface. We didn't want it to have that old-fashioned look where it's got all the serifs in place, so we deliberately chose a typeface that is just quite modern, quite clean looking, not too heavy, just to complete our look. And the style we have chosen and kept over the years has always been a very linear style. Over the years, any element or any wording we want to change just starts to slot into here. So there was a product which I've touched on before, Photo SF, which was one of our CRM systems, a digital product, and we still used Photo SF. We changed the colours, but the basic branding still stayed. And this is what I mean, that products starting to identify with your brand. They still sit under the SF umbrella, but they start to get known because people start to recognise the logo. So, how else do you establish your brand? And this is where I touched at the very beginning about what people think branding is. It's just a bit of photography and a few images. It so isn't. Yes, visually, your photography, your video work, certainly your website, social media, even your printed communications, they are all part of your visual branding. Yes, absolutely. But it's a little bit more than just going to a photographer and say, I need some branding images. Because this is where I say, we're just using marketing words for the sake of it. Nobody's actually paid any attention as to what that branding actually means. So a good photographer, videographer, should, before they go anywhere near their camera equipment, should have worked out with you who is your end audience, who are you trying to communicate to and appeal to, what's your current website. Are you performing this exercise because you're actually rebranding your website and changing that? What are your colours? What are your key colours? So simple things like your headshot photography, when we have done them historically or even now, one of the things, I do all of this research beforehand and will guide a person through to say, well, if your colours are purple, are you really going to be wearing a green top? What are you planning to bring in? Because people might think, well, I'll just take a selection of tops in and we'll just get a nice headshot. But visually, when you put that together, let's say on your about page on your website, it's just not going to work. It's not going to be cohesive. It's going to clash. So you might have a great image, but it's actually not in keeping with your look. So all of this research and work has to be done by that professional that is supporting you and creating what you're after. A phrase that I'm seeing constantly at the moment amongst photographers is, branding photography. We do your branding photography. It's a new term that's popped up in the last probably year, 2 years or so, because until then people knew it as commercial photography, product photography, headshots, commercial photography. This branding terminology is a new thing. Sounds very good, but from what I see, not many of them actually establish a brand just through photography. That's not what true branding photography really is. So there's more work to be done there for people to actually get that understanding, and I hope as a business owner you're sort of starting to realize where that fits in. Certainly for your website and social media, again, visually, yes, they are great places for you to establish your brand, but don't just take pictures or stick up posts on your social media, for example, without having placed your logo consistently in the same position. Use your exact colours, not versions of your logo colours or your brand colours. Make sure that your photography is punchy, sharp, engaging, sits well with your overall feel of your business. It's not just a random stock image that you've picked up from somewhere. And the same obviously applies to your printed communications. So, how else do you establish your brand? And this is where it becomes really important to start to understand that you, as a owner of a small business or medium business, you are also your brand. And that then starts to get a little bit more detailed once you get your head around this, because it's in the way that you communicate. It's your language, not just in your spoken word, for example, what I'm doing right now and how we are communicating our message about our business. It's also about the language that you use in your communications in terms of your social media posts, your website copy, anything printed, anyone representing you, any pieces that might be editorial. Are they speaking your true authentic language, how you like to communicate? But also, is that reflected in the engagement with your audience? So for example, if you are a coach for children, let's say a tutor, private tutor, you've actually got two levels of branding that you need to get across. Your end audience, the end user, yes, are the children. They need to connect with you and interact with you. So you need their buy-in, and there's no harder customer than a young child. You can convince them, you can convince anyone to buy into your brand. But before we get to that child, we've actually got to communicate with the parent. Without overgeneralizing, I suspect in many homes it's generally falls on the mum to sort out these things and pick up the pieces and see where we're going with all of this. So once you've worked out who is the profile of the audience that you're trying to engage with, then you can start to craft out your language to marry up with who you're trying to attract. So that's a really important place to start thinking about how you can communicate. Appearance. So your branding, again, are you, when you're out and about generally, in your meetings, even when you're working with your clients, is your appearance reflective of the message you're trying to convey about your business? So again, think about whether it's your style that you're putting forward, your personal style. So for example, in our business, for those of you that catch up with us regularly, Uzair has tended to make his personal image brand, if you like, generally speaking, on most days, a huge collection of white polo shirts. He likes that look. It's his thing. He wants to make sure that that's just nice and easy for him. And apparently there's another delivery of white polo shirts turning up sometime next week. But that's his choice. But within our business brand, that doesn't fit with me. I don't want to wear a white polo shirt. It's not a uniform. We're not in that kind of environment. And within our brand of SF Digital, there's a certain look that I want to portray, which doesn't start to drift from what we're trying to achieve as professionals, but it's how I want us also, for me personally, to be reflected in what we're doing. And also your communication style is also part of your brand. So whether you choose to use e-newsletters, blogs, the language that you use in your blogs, whether you are a telephone person and your mannerisms on the phone, how you're going to communicate with people, this is all part of your brand and who you are and what you're about. And this is where I say that actually, before we get onto that slide, live and breathe your brand. So it almost becomes, you're not even thinking about it. It becomes part of your personality, that everything you are doing in a professional sense starts to just be you. And so for example, one of the things around what we have been doing over many years is, without even realizing it, one of our core values has always been about helping people. Zara and I can't help ourselves. We've helped people, whether it's formally, informally, whether it's on the official topic or whether it's other things. We generally are there to support people in whatever role that we do. So what has somehow, I've noticed, certainly over recent months, one of the many messages I get through a week will often start with, I know how busy you are, but, or I have a feeling you're probably really busy, but do you think you could help me with? And they do that because they know that even though I may be really busy, it's because they know that when they've come to me in the past, they have the trust in me to help them. So they know that in spite of whatever may be going on for me, I will still reach out to them, and if I can help them, I'll give them the answer. Yes, no, maybe, whatever it may be. They know I'm supporting them. And that's not always just about business. It's about who you are, and that has become part of my personal brand, that people can rely on me to get back to them and give them the answer and the help that they're looking for. All totally discreet. It's never discussed anywhere else. I always joke, Vegas rules apply. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. The world is a small place. We don't want to share anything that is personal with anyone. So often, as you have seen on these lives, I never identify any of our clients. It's all totally discreet, and nobody needs to feel that we will expose anyone. A common mistake made by business owners. I put this slide in, and I'll be honest with you, I can't remember why I even put it in there. There was probably something rattling in my brain at the time when I was putting it through. So what does all of this branding mean for SF Digital in a business sense? So I've touched on my personal brand within the SF Digital framework. Uzair is very similar to me, otherwise he wouldn't be doing all the coaching calls, etc. that he's doing. But beyond that, how does this make our business grow, and hopefully your business grow? As we, like I say, live and breathe the SF Digital brand, it's about, for us, delivering for our clients because they know that they can rely on us, complete trust, that the knowledge we're putting out there is accurate, is applicable to them, and is useful to them. Take what you need from this. But beyond that, as we live and breathe that, we also want our team to start to buy into the SF Digital brand. And I call them the team. I don't like to, they're not staff or whatever, contractors. They're our team. We're all on the same side. And if we've got the buy-in of our team, it makes the whole process so much easier, because everyone knows exactly what the SF Digital brand is all about. Yes, there might be niggles in the background, things may not go to plan, but if we're open, transparent and supportive of each other, it means that we can iron out whatever those niggles are and get beyond them and get to the bigger picture, the fun stuff. So for us, part of that journey now is actually about systemizing pretty much everything, because you cannot grow a brand if you are muddled in your own sense, in terms of not being able to deliver because you haven't got all the bases covered. We're not being true to our brand. There's a secondary element to what we do, and that is that there is no use as a digital marketing agency asking others to trust you to do certain things within their business, whether that's improving their website or setting up a particular Google Ads campaign or tying in their social media into their campaigns, if we ourselves are not practicing what we preach. And so a big part of the work that our teams do is actually our internal marketing. It's a double-edged sword, that one. We do it because we must, to demonstrate how we do things so that we can replicate that for our clients. That's absolutely fine. But the fun part is that by doing the marketing that we do, all our inquiries are inbound. So we don't have a traditional model of going out there looking for sales. The leads come to us. It's our job just to convert them. And that is a great position to be in, because it's somebody that's actually looking for your services. You're not having to sell yourself and convince them that they need you. And actually, we're so busy, I don't actually physically have time to go out looking for business. There's enough out there for us to actually service and look after. So that's sort of a snapshot of where we are, and that's the main part of the branding presentation over. I hope that was useful. It's a tiny snapshot of the many elements of branding. And I did say from last week, from the new year onwards, I do a motivational tip each week. And so just as I'd finished prepping all of this, I thought, right, let's pick one of these motivational cards that I have on my desk. And I thought, right, okay, this is for this purpose, for this slide. And the one that came out was think big. And I had a little smile on my face, because I thought, actually, that ties in with branding. Branding is not just about your logo or your photo or a little piece of video. It's the whole picture. Think big. Think about how you're going to reach your audience, how you're going to grow everything you're doing. Start to drill down into the detail. Don't leave yourself in a vulnerable position or selling insincerely that you talk the talk but you're not quite walking the walk. Think big and achieve what you are destined to achieve. If you've got any questions and comments, please put them through. I don't think there's anything coming through as such, but I'll just double check in a second. But just to close off, again, quick reminder of that URL, sfdigital.co/YouTube, where you'll find all the information on our Google Ads Like a Boss coaching program. And if you have got any questions, please do reach out to us and I'm sure we can help you. And with that, just have a quick check. No, I think we're all good. So with that, thank you so much for once again joining me this Friday afternoon. I do hope you found it useful. If you do want to reach out, you know where we are, sfdigital.co.uk. And I look forward to seeing you all again next week, where I've got another interesting topic to share with you. Thank you very much.